In a previous video, we created this countdown timer from Frontend Mentor using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So for this video, what I wanted to do is that I wanted to replicate the countdown timer using React and to show you that it is possible using React as well. So let's get started immediately. I'm going to place this to the side. And what I've done is I've canvassed a new React application by saying npx create React app. This is the command right here, npx create React app, and then I've called it React countdown timer. And then once that finished, then I just open Visual Studio Code into that folder, and this is what I have on the screen right here. And then to my right is my development server, which I have started by running npm start. So once you run npm start, it's going to canvas your React application for you, and then it's going to open it up on localhost 3000, and this is the default application that you're going to see. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go into my app.js. So go into app.js like so. Let me close this. And then inside app.js, I'm going to remove everything inside here. So this entire div, just going to cut it out. And then I'm going to remove these two imports at the top. And then I'm going to import the useState hook from React. So going to import it from React. And then inside here, I just want to return a fragment for now. And then this fragment is going to be an h1 that says React countdown timer, like so. And then we should see it reflect on the screen like so. So that's looking fantastic. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to set up our state values for the hour, for the days, the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. Because by populating those, then we can render them out on the screen inside our JSX. So I'm going to create 4 state values. The first one is going to say const days and set days. This is going to be equal to useState, and by default I just want to say, for example, 10, and then just grab this and copy it down. This is going to be hours and set hours, and this is going to be 10 as well. And then this is going to say set minutes, and then the state value is going to be minutes, and then finally this is going to say seconds, and then the function is going to say set seconds, and all of these are defaulted to 10. This is a default of 10. And then once we do that, then I'm just going to go inside. Let me structure our JSX. And first of all, actually, I'm just going to cut this out, and then I'm going to return a section with a class of container, like so. Paste this in, and then below this, I'm going to return a div with a class of countdown, like so. So once we create this div with a class of countdown, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another div inside here. Actually, not instead of a div, let me return an article just so that we can be a little more diverse. And then inside this article, I'm going to return a paragraph that says days, which is our state value. Notice this, now we're getting this days, and it should display 10 on the screen because that's the default state value that we have. And then below this, I'm going to return an h3 that says days. Oops, that's the text that says days, like so. So once I save this, then we should see 10 days on the screen, like so. Because once again, this state value, we have defaulted it to 10 days, okay? And then I'm just going to copy out this article. I'm going to copy it 3 more times. So 1, 2, 3. And then this is going to say hours. Okay, and then this says hours, like so. This is going to say minutes. And then this says minutes. And then this is going to say seconds. And then this will say seconds. So that when I save this, then I should see 10 for everything. Okay, so we have this on the screen. Now, let me just tear this out a bit so that we can focus on our React later. So let me go inside index CSS. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. Let me remove this as well. And then at the top, let me target everything, and I'm going to say reduce the margin to 0, or rather reset the margin to 0, reset the padding to 0, and then set the box sizing to border box, like so. Okay, and then let's target the container. Let's say display flex, align item center, and justify content to the center with a min height of 100 viewport height so that it's completely to the center, like so. And then set the flex direction to column. And then let's go inside the countdown. So count down. So for the countdown, I'm also going to say display flex, and this should go like so. And then I'm going to say align item center and justify content to the center. And then actually not, let's say space around like so. Let's save this, let's see. And then for the countdown, I want to target countdown, I want to target the paragraph. And this is going to have a padding, come on, of 20 pixels. Let's see. Okay, and the background color of white. And I know it doesn't really make sense now, but if I go to the body and give this body a background color of F1, 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 a very light gray, then you can see the white right there. And then let me go inside the countdown. So countdown and then target the divs. And then I'm going to set the divs to have a margin of 10 pixels all around, just to separate them out. Actually, this is not a div, this is an article. So 10 pixels all around like so. And then let's see, go back inside the paragraph, and then let's say border radius, set this to 5 pixels, 5 pixels. And then let's say something's wrong. Let's say right here, let's say text align to the center. Okay, so that this goes to the center like so. And then for the paragraphs, I just want to give all of them a fixed width. So I'm going to say width for this should be 50 pixels. Let's say 100 pixels. Okay, and then let's say height is going to be 100 pixels as well. Let's see that. That looks terrible. Let's just leave it at width of 100 pixels. And then let me say box shadow, set this to let's say 5 pixels, 5 pixels, and RGBA 0000.5. Okay, let me reduce this to 0.3 so that we have this. And then let me add a margin on the bottom. So margin dash bottom, set this to around 20 pixels, pushed away from the text. And then now let's type the text. So count down H3. Okay, and then for the H3, I want the font size to reduce to around 8 pixels. And then say text transform, set this to uppercase like so. Save this. Oops, this is too small. Let's set it to 12. Let's say 13, 14. Okay, and then what else can we do? Let me go back to the body. Where's the body? Right here. Let me set the text color for this to be 333. Okay, so that we have this. And then let's target this H1 next. So the container H1. So container, target the H1. Let me say text transform. Let's set this to uppercase as well. Uppercase. Okay, let's set margin bottom to 30 pixels. And then let's say text align center, so that when the screen is lesser than this, then this text will always align to the center instead of to the left. And then let's go inside the container once again. Let me set a padding of 0 on the top and bottom and 20 pixels on the left and right, so that on small screens, then this will always have a margin, like a bit of padding on the left and right as well. And then right inside the countdown, because on smaller screens, this is going to go outside of the screen. What I want to do is just say flex wrap and set this to wrap, so that when it reaches the end of the screen, this is one semicolon, so that when it reaches to the end of the screen, then this will automatically go to the next line and so on and so forth, so that it's not going to be crowded anymore. Okay, so we're going to have that, and this is looking fantastic. Now we just need to deal with our JSX next. So let's go back into app.js, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function. Actually, let me change this into an arrow function. So const app equals to brackets and then set my arrow function like so. We are going to create the countdown function, right? So I'm going to say const countdown equals to create an arrow function like so. And then inside here, we're going to say const end date is equal to new date, and then pass in the date that you want. And I'm going to just use May 30, which is what we used in the previous video. Or rather than that, then let me set it to the Christmas day this year. So I'm going to say December 25, 2021, and then set it to midnight. So 000000, like so. And then I'm going to say const today equals to new date, and then I'm going to append the get time method here, which will get the time today in milliseconds, and then do the same here. So get time, and then once we get this time, these two times in milliseconds, then we can subtract them to get the actual time between the two dates. So I'm going to say const difference, or I can say time diff, like so. So time difference equals to end date minus today, like so. So that if I try and say console log the time diff, and I think nothing will work, it's going to break a bit. Let me see. See that, and it breaks because we haven't called this function. Okay, so count down, just call the function here. Let me hope that nothing is going to break, and still nothing breaks. Okay, so you know what, there's something that I don't want to do yet. That's why I didn't want to call this function. So let's just continue, and then I'm going to explain to you what it is that I didn't want to do, so that you can actually realize the need to do it, right? So next we're going to define our seconds, minutes, hours, and days, right? So I'm going to say const seconds, like so, is equal to 1000 milliseconds, and then const minutes equals to seconds times 60. So once we get these seconds to be 1000 milliseconds, then we can multiply it by 60 to get the minutes, and then const hours equals to minutes times 60, and then const days equals to hours times 24. Okay, and then once you do that, then I'm going to create the functions that will get the will actually get the actual times from these two end dates. So I'm going to use the let keyword here instead of const, for a reason that I'm going to explain in a moment. And I'm going to say let time days, so the days that are between those two dates. So let time days equal to, and I'm going to say math.flow, and we're going to be getting the difference divided by the number of days. So that's the time in days that is right there. And then I'm going to say let time hours equals to math.flow, and then here we're going to be getting, oops, what did I do here? This should be just one bracket, and then here is going to be difference modulus the days, and then divide them by the hours, and this will get the time in hours that is between these two days. And notice how I'm using math.flow. The reason is because if you divide these two dates, then you're going to get a decimal value, and if you try to render out a decimal value here, of course, you know, it doesn't really make sense in terms of the UI. So math.flow, what math.flow does is that it will round it up so that you always get a whole number instead of a decimal. And then we're going to say let time minutes equals to math.flow, and we're going to be getting the difference modulus the hours, right? And then divide them by the minutes, like so. So minutes that we have here. So this is going to be time minutes, okay? And then finally, we're going to say let time seconds equals to math.flow, and then we're getting the difference modulus the minutes, and then divide them by the seconds. And that's how you get the time in seconds. And what this modulus does is that it is going to return the remainder of the division. So when you divide the difference by the minutes, it's going to return you the remainder of the division that is happening right there. And then once we do this, then remember how we set up our state values up top here. And remember how when you're setting up your state values using useState, the first value is going to be your state value, and then the second is going to be the function that controls the state value, how you access the state value. Once we know that this is going to be the function that controls our state value, then we can go within this function and we can say set days into time days, like so. So we are getting this time days from this, and then we're going to be setting it into this function, which will then populate this state value, and then it's going to change this default one. It's going to change from this default one to the new value that we have calculated right here. And then we're going to say the same thing. So set hours into time hours, like so, and then set minutes into time minutes, and then set seconds into time seconds, like so. And I'm going to save that, which will then populate everything. Difference is not defined. Okay, this is not different, this is time diff. I was using difference because that's what I was testing it out with. So time diff like so, which should now get rid of this error like so. Okay, so we're going to have this. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is now call this function, because as you can see, we have everything in the function working as it should, but the function is not being called, so it won't really work. So how do you do that? React provides us with another hook called useEffect, and useEffect just means that it's controlling the after effects of whatever is happening into your React application. If you've used class components before, then what useEffect is basically is that it is component did mount, component did unmount, and so on and so forth. It's just the life cycle packed into one React hook. So I'm going to import it at the top here and say useEffect. And then at the bottom, after this function, I'm going to create my useEffect and then call my place my callback function like so. And then inside here, I'm going to set interval, right? Set interval, and we're going to be calling the countdown function every second, which is 1,000 milliseconds, like so. And then once I save this, then this should work. So let's see. And look at that. So we have 227 days, 7 hours, 49 minutes, and 20 seconds to Christmas. Now, obviously, I want to add a 0 before this. And once this gets to less than 10, just look at this. Then I want it to display as 09, 08, 07, and so on and so forth. So we can do that easily by just saying time hours, and we are checking time hours and we are equating it to time hours like so. And we're checking if it is less than 10, then we want to return a 0 like so, plus the time hours. And if it is not less than 10, then we just want to return the time hours like so. So let me save this. Let's see how we see. It should say 07, and something's wrong. Something is wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. Okay, and just like that, we have 07 hours, and then we want to do the same for the minutes and the seconds. So I'm going to copy this down, select this using Control D. So select 1, 2, 3, and 4. Change this to time minutes like so. Then grab this and 1, 2, 3, say time seconds like so. And we should have, going to let this run down to less than 10 so that we can see what we have. Let me just reload this, and there we go. So that's what's happening, and it is working correctly. Now, once we do that, notice how if I try to reload, we get our default state values first, and then once this runs, then it is populated with the values that are needed. Now, I don't want, when we load the application, I don't want our users to see 10, 10, 10, 10 first of all, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up another state value called is loading. So I'm going to say const is loading and set is loading like so. And this is going to be equal to use state. And by default, it is always going to be true, right? Meaning before all of this loads, I always want to display something else on the screen, which is the loading state, right? So how do you do that? I'm going to go back below this and grab all this section, the whole of this section, just cut it out. And then I'm going to place my brackets and I'm going to say if is loading is true. So we're checking if it is true. Then we want to render something here on the screen, right? So for now, I'm just going to render loading dot dot dot. And then if it is false, then I just want to render my section like so. So that if I try to save this, then we should see loading on the screen like so. We should see loading because our state value is true. Now, how do we remove it? We want to check that once all of this is already set into our state values, then we want to say set is loading also to false, so that once it fetches it everything, then it's going to display everything, and we won't see these default state values that we have on the top. So let's try that. Let's reload and notice loading, and then this. So this is working as it should. But then I don't want to just display loading. Instead, I want to create a custom loading spinner. So for now, because I just want to style this out, what I'm going to do is comment this out so that we're going to have loading on the screen always. Okay, so that we're going to have loading always. And then I want to go inside here, and instead of returning an h1, I'm going to return a div with a class of loading like so. And then inside this div with the class of loading, I'm going to return a div with a class of spinner like so. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to style this out into a loading spinner. So let's go into our index CSS right at the top below the body. Then I'm going to target the loading one. For now, it's just going to be blank. And then I'm going to target the spinner. And the spinner, what I want to do is I want to give this a background color of 333. And then sorry, wait, that's not correct. That is not correct. Let me give it a background color of transparent, and then let me give it a border of 2 pixels solid and 323, and then let me give it a height of 50 pixels and a width of 50 pixels, so that we should have a box on the screen. So we have this box on the screen. Let me make it a bit bigger. Let me change this, both of these, to 80 pixels. Just make it a bit bigger, and then I want it to be rounded, so I'm going to say box wait, not box, but border radius, set this to 50%, so that it's going to be rounded on the screen. And then once we do that, then I want to give a border top, so I'm going to say border top, and I want it to be wait, not border top, border top color, is it? Yeah, border top color. Set this to, let's just have it as red for now, so that we're going to have this red accent on the top. And actually, instead of this being 333, let me change it to grayer, so let's say 999, right around there, so that this is more prominent. And then once we do that, then I want to add an animation here, and I'm going to say animation. The name of the animation is going to be spin, and we're going to create it. And then I want it to spin for 0.5 seconds, so 0.5 seconds. And I want it to be linear and infinite, so it's going to spin forever. And then once we do that, then we need to create this animation. So I'm going to say add keyframes, and it's called spin, like so. And we're going to be rotating it. So I'm going to say 2 and say transform rotate 360 degrees. And then let's save this and let's see. And we should have this. Look at that, looking fantastic, right? Now I want this to move to the center of the screen. So let's go back into our loading class, and I'm going to say position this as absolute, and then position it to the left by 50%, to the top by 50%, which will move it to the center, like so. And then let's say transform. So transform and translate by -50 on the x-axis and -50 on the y-axis, so that it's going to be perfectly centered, like so. Now we have our loading spinner ready. So let's go back into app.js, and then let's disable this, actually enable it, and then save it. And we should see that. So it loads in like so, and then once it loads in, then we have this on the screen looking amazing. So we have our loading spinner, and we have everything working correctly. So I think that is going to be it. And that is just a simple way that you can create a countdown timer in React using the useState hooks and the useEffect, and it works perfectly. And another way that you can do this is that you can grab this entire function, and then you can paste it inside the useEffect right inside here, and it will still work the same way. And actually, just let me just show it to you. So just cut it out, then paste it inside here, like so, and it should still work correctly. So let's reload this, and look at that, it still works as it should. So whether you want to place your function outside the useEffect or inside the useEffect, you can do it. Just remember that useEffect hook cannot be asynchronous, so never ever make this useEffect hook asynchronous. You can make the functions inside to be asynchronous, but not the useEffect hook. And the reason for that is simple. It's because an asynchronous function always returns a promise, and the useEffect cannot take in a promise. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are not already subscribed, and I will see you in the next video. So bye bye.